RT is sitting down with Jerry White, Socialist Equality Party presidential candidate for the upcoming 2012 elections. Mr. White, thank you very much for joining RT today.
Thank you very much.
Well, according to a Gallup poll, a record number of Americans now identify themselves as independents. That's actually more than those who identify themselves as Democrats or Republicans. What do you think that says about American politics?
The really central question is, for years, social opposition has always been channeled back into the Democratic Party, which has presented itself as the People's Party, right? So you had huge protests, for example, against the Iraq War in 2003. But then the leadership of those protests quickly put that movement behind first the John Kerry campaign and then finally the Obama campaign. You have the Occupy Wall Street protests, an initial expression of enormous anger over social inequality, the domination of big money over the government, the imperviousness of the government to the needs of the population. But again, the leadership of these movements, in one way or another, channeled it behind the Democratic Party, maybe via the trade unions, which, the argument being that somehow the Democratic Party is really a people's party. But it has always been a capitalist party. It is the second party of American capitalism. And so it has functioned primarily to channel social opposition completely behind a capitalist program, a bourgeois program. Workers face governments which are completely controlled by the world banks or the oligarchs or the corporate elites. And in every country, the working class needs a political program. And our program isn't based just on slogans or immediate conjunctural events, but it's based on an understanding of history and the long struggle by the socialist movement and such figures as Leon Trotsky. There's no national solution for American workers or Greek workers. We're confronting huge multinational corporations.
But nowhere in the world does a presidential election receive and garner the type of financial donations and contributions as an election in the United States. U.S. President Barack Obama is expected to raise $1 billion or more for his re-election campaign this year. And I'm sure whatever Republican opposes him will have a large amount of money too. Is there any way in the future that every presidential candidate runs on the same amount of money? Why can't it be an equal playing field where candidates are actually working to get votes from citizens rather than getting money from citizens and corporations?
Well, it's the best government that money can buy in the United States. And it's a government that serves those moneyed interests. I mean, you're correct to say it. It's one of the most undemocratic ballot access laws. For instance, to even get on the ballot requires tens of thousands of signatures, which are then scrutinized by the Democrats and Republicans to exclude any independent parties. Even once you get ballot access, as you noted, the media generally excludes any oppositional voices. So I think that the question of a broadening of a democratic electoral process is bound up with the political awakening and the political struggle of the working class. You can't have genuine democracy when 1% of the population controls such vast wealth and carries out policies which are so antithetical to the interests of society as a whole. They can't do it democratically. They have to use more and more authoritarian methods of repression. There is opposition to the war in this country, in Afghanistan and Iraq, yet they're preparing for another war.
Are there nations whose leaders, in your opinion, truly represent the people's agenda or represent what you see as a democracy? No. Not one nation.
No, not at all.
In this world?
No, not at all.
So you're saying there's no democracy?
There's no genuine democracy anywhere, because genuine democracy is bound up with social equality. It means that the most important decisions of a society, not simply choosing between 2 representatives or 3 representatives of big business, but the most important decisions, how a society's resources are allocated, peace or war, these decisions have to be made by the working population, which is the vast majority of the population in every country.
How would you say U.S. foreign policy could or would change if what Americans wanted was represented by the American leader?
Well, I mean, clearly the American population, just as the working people around the world, have no interest in slaughtering one another in battles over the interests of huge energy conglomerates and so forth. We are fighting to give voice to the sentiments and the needs of the American working class, and I want to stress that our campaign is not simply an American campaign. We are fighting to unify the working class internationally against the dangers of new war, the type of crimes that have recently emerged, as in the massacre in Afghanistan. These aren't simply the issue of stretched out soldiers, as abused these soldiers are themselves, the American soldiers are, but it's the very character of these types of wars that are being carried out, wars of occupation, wars to subjugate entire populations, including the recent war in Libya, which was carried out in the name of human rights. It was a war, as Iraq, as Afghanistan, of the reemergence of colonialism, of imperialism, and the working class in America has no interest in that, and the working class around the world has no interest in that. We see the struggle for genuine peace as the struggle for socialism, the struggle for the working class to take economic and political power in its own hands.
It is almost always a Republican and a Democratic candidate that dominate presidential elections in the United States. If Americans had to choose between, two models of cars or two types of cereals, they wouldn't like it. They would want more choices, more variety. So why are Americans okay with just having this domination of a two-party system?
Well, it isn't the choice of Americans, the ordinary Americans, that you have a monopoly of two corporate-backed parties. I mean, it is in the interest of those two corporate-backed parties to exclude any voices that challenge the political monopoly of the financial elite over society. None of the major decisions that affect the lives of millions of people are ever put before the population. No one asked the American people whether or not an invasion of Iraq in 2003 should go ahead. No one asked the American people in 2008 and 2009 should trillions of dollars be handed out to the reckless financiers on Wall Street that destroyed the economy. If they were asked, they would clearly say, no, that money should go to schools, it should go to jobs, it should go to health care, the basic needs of the population. So the political monopoly that exists isn't because there's a general consensus in the population for that. It is a monopoly against genuine democracy, And
so you're saying America's leaders don't represent the people?
No, they don't.
What you're saying. Well, they get votes. You can't say that they don't get votes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the decay of American democracy has been going on, consistently for decades and decades. You had the stolen election of 2000 in 2000. You had the unexplained events of 2001, 9/11, which were utilized to more and more attack the most basic democratic rights. You now have a President Obama who is declaring that he has the right to assassinate U.S. citizens anywhere in the world without genuine due process. Millions voted for Obama, for example, in 2008 because they wanted an end to what Bush represented. And Obama has gone even further in the tax on wages and living standards and social programs than the Republicans ever did.
Many critics believe that the so-called American style of political theater is replicated in many other democratic countries, like France, for example. Do you agree with that?
Of course, it's a crying shame. The degradation of politics is being brought out. Everything is to do with celebrity, everything to do is slogans, and appealing certainly not to reason and through reasoned argument, but the crassest appeals and so on. But that's also an indication of how distant the French government is from the masses of working people. You know, you have this tragedy in Toulouse the other day, and of course that was an incredible crime. But however, the French government's engaged in wars. It's banning the burqa. It's using anti-immigrant and anti-Arab chauvinism in France. These horrible tragedies are an inevitability under those conditions. And what is politics in every part of the world? Blaming immigrants for the problems of unemployment. While the political figures hand over trillions to the banks, they blame immigrants for unemployment or for taking slots in schools. So everywhere, bourgeois politics is decaying to such crass appeals. You know, you contrast that, for instance, in the period where American political life during the American Revolution, or Lincoln when he came to Cooper Union here in New York before engaging in his election campaign, they actually spoke in an intelligent fashion. They made arguments. They explained what slavery was. They explained the incapacity of society moving forward on such a basis. They made an appeal to reason, to deep democratic, small d, democratic sentiments in the population. What can Obama do except claim to the population that I feel your pain, I'm really on your side, while he's getting millions of dollars from Wall Street? So of course the level of politics is so degraded. But these are deep social forces, the breakdown of capitalism around the world, the incredible levels of social inequality, the imperviousness of the political establishments is giving rise to the emergence of a powerful movement of the working class.
Jerry White, Socialist Equality Party presidential candidate, thank you very much for sitting down with our team.
Thank you very much.